Like Kat said, my name is Sam Lauk. I am the Director of Operations for Client Support at Engaging Networks. I have my roots in Tier 1 support, so you may have read my name on an email or two if you ever have submitted a ticket to support. I've been with the company for about 5 years now, and prior to working at Engaging Networks, I worked actually on the client side for a national, in the States, a national children's literacy nonprofit with Mons Hecht Allen, who was an Engaging Networks celebrity. So, just curious, how many folks have had the opportunity to kind of play around with the new marketing tools by a show of hands? Okay, so a few, but a lot of people who haven't necessarily had the chance to get into them. So we're gonna just have a look at those new marketing tools and then some ways that you can personalize your marketing automation, or sorry, your marketing tools, including kind of how conditional content now works with the new tools. All right, so the first thing we're gonna have a look at are new templates. And so templates are gonna work a little differently than they did in Email Classic, and they're going to work a lot more easily if you're not familiar with things like HTML or CSS. So I'm gonna go here to the Marketing Tools menu, and we're just gonna have a look at templates. I will go ahead and select Create a Template. And you have two options here. So you can create a template from scratch. That probably would require some knowledge of HTML and CSS. Or there's an option to start from a sample. And so I'm going to go ahead and select that option. We provide 2 sample templates. You can use these sample templates to then build your own templates. I'll go ahead and go ahead and select one of these, and I'll show you some of the new functionality with these templates. So it's going to start on this HTML tag option here, but I'm going to toggle over to the visual so we can see some of the new functionality here. So on the left side here, we have kind of a visual representation of how your email would look, and this is the template that we're looking at. Over here on the right, if we've selected this global tab, and there's various elements that you can update then in your templates. So for example, if we wanted to make a change to this logo, rather than having to maybe update that in the HTML, you can simply select from this library component and select the logo that you've updated to your components library. Similarly, if we scroll down a bit more, there's some additional things that you could change. So and these are things that, depending on how your designer put this template together, you could make kind of as much or as little available to your users to change in your email templates. So in our templates, we have these background colors. So this gray color here, we could change that to a different color. We have some headings and the body text. We allow some of that to be changed. The other thing I wanted to just note in a template is you can also use component blocks or content blocks. If there's content that you're looking to change that you're not seeing available in this global tab, it's going to be a content block. So if we toggle over to that, you'll see it's asking that we select a content block to then customize. If we click this image, for example, you'll see that it populates here where we could just, again, select from our library to then update that image. This also is a content block. It's just formatted a little differently. So obviously it's, rather than an image, you have the ability to change text here. Very similar to the templates, you can create your own content blocks, or we also have samples available that you could add. So if we selected, for example, this plus icon here, you would see all of our available sample blocks that can be added, or any custom blocks that you would created here. So kind of with that structure in mind, I was going to just have a look at how you can build a conditional content email using these new templates. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of the template, and we don't need that. So similar to other conditional content in the platform and also with Email Classic, the first kind of requirement for conditional content is going to be a profile. So profiles are ways that you can segment your supporters based on various information. And so you can create profiles by going here to Data and Reports, and then Profiles. And then if we create a new profile, there are several available filters. So filters include things like transactional history in engaging networks. It could be as simple as like constituent data. So you could filter supporters by a particular region, for example. But this just allows you to actually build the segments that you may subsequently want to email or send conditional content to. So that's really the first step in creating conditional content, is to first build out your profiles. Once you have done that, you can then, once you've done that and you've also created your template, you can go here to the marketing tools again, and we're going to just go ahead and go to broadcast. And I'm going to create a broadcast. And so these are the new tools here. So for this first one, we're going to do content block changes. Similar to Email Classic, you're going to have to select kind of the reason you're sending this campaign. And so this is just important for visual reporting later. And so we're going to just go ahead and select fundraising for that. And we're just going to select this option for email only. Move on. So this is also kind of somewhere where the marketing tools differ from Email Classic. You can select your audience now in this process. And if you were to select this now and for any reason have to, switch to another task, come back to this, it will retain your audience selection. That's a little bit of an improvement from the Email Classic tool, which, if you had already scheduled an email and you had to cancel it, you wouldn't be able to retain that audience. You'd have to rebuild it. So I'm going to go ahead and select just one of our saved queries here. You're still just going to have the option of selecting a saved query, or you can just build a particular query if you select the Create New Query option here. All right, and so this is when you can actually kind of build out your campaign. And so you'll see there's this option here to create a core message. So that's kind of the the original message that you're going to be working off of to create your conditional content. So if we select that, it's going to give you a sort of a similar option to Email Classic tool. So you have the ability to start from one of the templates that you just created, or you can clone an existing email if you have one available. So I'm going to go ahead and select this option. Again, you're going to have the ability to either use the Engaging Network sample templates or one of the templates that you have already built. So I actually built a template kind of in advance of this, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And so it will now load the content from your template into your message. And this is going to have very similar functionality to the template, but the changes that you're making to this message are only to this message. Like a template level change would make a change to any subsequent emails you use that template to build with. The changes here are only going to be made for this message. Over here on the right-hand side, we have our settings tab. That's going to be very similar to the Email Classic tool as well. This is where you configure things like your subject line. So maybe, this is a fundraising appeal. Maybe we say something like, please donate. And we also have the option to insert supporter data. And so maybe we want to put the supporter's first name, and we'll fall back to friend. Preview text. So this is basically what will display in the supporter's inbox next to the subject line. So you might have it be the first line of text in your email or something like that. this is just the name of a particular message. And so this first one is obviously just going to have a name similar to your campaign, followed by core. It can get a little bit more complex as you're adding more messages to your campaign. And so I'm not going to make a change to this, but it may be something you want to pay attention to as you're creating more and more versions of a particular message. Next, we just going to go ahead and select the sender, the reply to. A little bit of a difference from our email classic tools. We now have this option to associate a tracking parameter. What this will do is for every link that you insert in the particular message, it will append the tracking parameter that you select here to those links. So rather than having to add it to each individual link, you can just do it here in the settings. And then lastly, I'm just going to put a value for Google Analytics. If you have Google Analytics enabled in your email settings, this is just where you would, put in that campaign value here. And then the fields that you see here, these are just additional transactional fields that can optionally be turned on or off for the email tool. They're also available to pages. But if a supporter did something like click on your email, that transaction, that EBC transaction indicating that click would have these the values indicated here on that transaction. So it can just be used for some additional tracking. And we have a session tomorrow to discuss a little bit more about that as well. All right, so once you configure your actual settings, and maybe you wanted to make changes to the message that you're putting together, if we toggle over to this global tab, you can again make changes, the exact changes actually that you can make at the template level, you can make them in this message as well. So we could swap out the logo, we can make changes to our headers, we could change the color of the background, things like that. Similarly, we have this option for content. And again, we're gonna have to just select a content block to make a change for. Once you select the content block, it will make that content available to make changes to. You can also add, just like a template, you can add additional content blocks to your message from here. Also, like other features within engaging networks, like all of this has drag and droppable functionality. So if we wanted to, drag this, anywhere else in the message, you could do that. One new improvement for this tool is you can also conditionalize content within these blocks. So the Email Classic tool allowed you to have different emails with different content. This one actually allows you to, within this actual block, have different content. So over here on the left, you could select this Enable Conditional Content. And this is where you're actually going to then select your profile. So in this case, I actually, I created two profiles. I created a major donors profile and a volunteers profile. And so I'm gonna go ahead and add those. And now you'll see at the top of this message, it will tell you which version you're currently editing. So in addition to the two profiles that I created, there's also gonna be an option of fallback. The fallback would be supporters who are part of your overall audience you selected. And so I just selected like a generic opt-in, so supporters with opt-in that equals Y. If there were some supporters who had a Y for that opt-in, but were not part of either the major donors profile or the volunteers profile, they would receive the fallback version. Over here on the right, this is where you can then select which particular version you want to make changes to. And it will then load that message. If we toggle back also to the settings tab here, there's this option for manage conditional content. If we select from that dropdown, you'll also see the profiles we've selected. So kind of in addition to a scenario where a supporter might be part of your audience, but they're not part of your profiles, there is a possibility that your supporter might be in more than one of the profiles that you've added. And in that case, you can actually prioritize so that they would get the higher they would get the condition with the higher priority. And so that's where you're going to be able to make that prioritization is just right here. You can just drag and drop. So yeah, in a scenario where maybe a supporter was a major donor and a volunteer, maybe you want them to get the major donor content, and you can ensure that happens by prioritizing the major donor content. So that's kind of the main difference. In the new tools is just the ability to just add this condition here. I'm going to just go ahead and save, and we can close this. Oh, save changes. So now that you've built out maybe the different versions of your message, we can continue to testing. You'll see here it flags that you do have conditional content there. If you had done a split test, for example, it would show A, B here. There is an option when you're testing to send all variations of a particular message that you built out as part of testing. And then we still have also this option to include a seed list when you're testing as well. If we continue on to the sending screen, there's one other thing that I just wanted to flag here as an improvement. So there's this option to send or schedule your message. These messages are going to be very similar to Email Classic, so you have the option to just send your message immediately, or you can send it at a later time. One thing that we did is we now respect your account settings for this date setting. So however you've configured your settings in your overall account, the date will respect those settings. And then the next feature here is just the send time optimization. And so this one will, what it will do is if Engaging Networks has the data for supporters, it will send and say you designate that you would like your message sent at 2 p.m. It will send the message to all supporters at 2 p.m. regardless of their time zone, assuming we have that data for them. And they would get that data by doing something like submitting a donation or submitting a page. So that's just like another way that you can kind of personalize messages to your supporters and ensure that they get it at the same time regardless of time zone. So that's this option here. To go back briefly to this message option, while we have added the functionality of changing content within blocks, we've also retained the functionality of having the option to test segments. And so if you wanted to have just entirely different messages for supporters based on that profile, and it would allow you to test things like a subject line, for example. We still have the ability to create multiple messages. And so you would just add that segment here. It would require that you select a profile to assign, and then it's just going to open up, a similar setting screen to, to that message that we were originally looking at. And you can have, a different subject line, a different sender. All of those things configured in the settings can be configured there as well. So there's no loss of functionality in that sense. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We were gonna, allow for a lot of questions. I anticipate them. But yeah, I encourage everyone to kind of get into the tool and play around. But if you're not familiar with HTML or CSS, these tools are much easier for building and sending emails. So cool, that's it.
Amazing. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, so we had some questions come in. We may also tell some of you to just put in a ticket because, that's how these things go. But is creating a profile the same as creating a segment in Engaging Networks?
I would say it is, but I would say that it is. We also have like a query builder tool, and so obviously that can be used to actually build your audience, and so that also might there might be a component to using query builder to building a segment. But for this purpose, yes, profiles are the way that you would build a segment.
Yeah, and I think to elaborate a bit more, so profiles are used in multiple places in the platform. So you can show conditional content on a fundraising page, for instance, to major gift donors, right? That landing page, that donation page, can look different based off of the profile that someone belongs to. They can also be used to create segments and emails as well. So profiles are definitely one of the engines that drive the customization in engaging networks. Do you have to leave the email builder to create profiles?
For now, you do. We are in the process of kind of deprecating what you see now as the email menu. And so to kind of put everything under the marketing tools, and I believe that includes profiles for now. But ultimately, you would have to leave the kind of the email builder to create a profile. Yes.
Great, thanks, Sam. How is time zone data collected?
So that is when a supporter submits a page. I believe we gather information from based on their IP address, and we append it to their record so that we have that information. And so then when you subsequently send them an email, it would, if you have that option enabled, it would send it to the supporter based on their time zone rather than your local time.
And it does give you a little pop-up that it's best to schedule that email at least 24 hours ahead of time. So that way it has time to look at all 24 plus time zones and make sure that it gets it into the right spot. And then are you able to import that data?
I don't think currently.
I don't know the answer to that, actually. Either.
Yeah, I don't.
I kind of hope
currently.
You did. I feel like that's something that we definitely talked about at one point, and I don't know if it's available right now, but we'll follow up with that one for sure.
Yeah, we'll confirm for you.
Or someone will come running in from the staff room and be like, it's available, we can do it now. All right, so this is a question that we've got quite a bit is, can we use marketing tools in Email Builder and still have the flexibility of customizing HTML and CSS?
So you will have access to the HTML and CSS at the template level. And then basically whoever either builds your template for you or kind of uses our template to build a template for you, they can kind of be as flexible as they would like to be in allowing users to make changes. But you do still have access to the HTML and CSS in that template builder. So there is some that you can do there. There's some ability now to kind of access like source in like text blocks in Email Builder. That's no longer going to be available in marketing tools, primarily because it's really meant for end users who are not familiar with HTML and CSS, and so you wouldn't necessarily want your users to have access to that. But yeah, at the template level, you can still be making changes to HTML and CSS.
Right. So the biggest thing is the product was designed for now and the future, right? And 5 years ago, if you had digital in your title, you definitely could at least write HTML. You could read HTML, you could write CSS, you could write CSS. Like if you had digital in your title, you could do those things. If you have digital in your title now, you probably cannot do those things. It is not a prerequisite that you can write HTML, that you can write PHP, that you can write Java. That is just not part of the job, right? Instead, digital really reflects the audience that person is focused on, right? And so if you throw our current Email Classic tool in front of a 23-year-old content creator and their job is to get emails out with good quality copy and good quality images, they get stuck when they're having to hop into the HTML to make an update. Oh, just change the image size, using the HTML. I see a lot of nods in here because I know most of you, and most of you are really comfortable with that, and that makes sense. But the end users, the people that you're actually asking to do that, aren't going to feel as comfortable. Now, if you're still, as part of your workflow, used to being able to jump in and do that kind of work, Email Classic isn't being deprecated this year. It is something that is still available for you to use. And we do know there is this core functionality that some clients use of URL parameter appending inside of source code when they send an email. It's a very specific niche thing, but it's something that we see a lot of very large enterprise clients do. We will have a solution for that before Email Classic would ever get deprecated, because it is something that is that important and it's something that we're going to work on. It's just not phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3 because Email Classic still exists.
I think it's actually next release.
Oh, I didn't want to let them know that.
I believe that's in our next release.
Yeah, I think
but
it is too.
Basically, it would allow you to, we see a lot of clients now who go into the HTML and they actually replace their links with very complex links that have, a number of parameters appended, so UTMs, things like that. And we're adding functionality that would just allow you, with the kind of what you see is what you get tools, to just paste in a link with all of those parameters.
Right.
So again, it wouldn't require then that you access the HTML to make a change like that.
Yeah. Rapid fire. Are some blocks required for all emails, or could the logo block be removed, for example?
The logo block could be removed. There's no required blocks. So yeah, you could have kind of as many or as few as you'd like in an email template.
On an average day, how long does it take to deploy 75,000 emails?
I would say like less than 20 minutes. It's not a very long time at all.
17 seconds on a normal day? If it's Giving Tuesday, you know what you're getting into,
Yeah.
but for the most part, we're sending millions of emails every day, so 75,000 would go out pretty quickly. If you want specific numbers, you can come chat with me and I can probably get you very specific granular numbers on what our output is on a given day. So, and then can some users only have access to create emails but not have permissions to actually send the email to a list?
Yes, we have permissions related to that, and we've actually bolstered the permissions related to marketing tools as well. But yes, it is possible to allow a user to build an email but not send it.
There you go. Thank you so much, Sam.